Just bear with me for one moment. Those of you that are on LinkedIn, those of you that are on Facebook, thank you so much for joining Chom's MEDI-HELPZ Foundation on day 13. Tonight, we are honored to have as our guest the president of the SDIG group, who is going to tell us all about what we need to know, and he's going to give you some thoughts. He's going to throw some stuff out there that's going to make you think about, where we're at in society, period. I mean, this is Black History Month in the United States, but society, period. He's going to actually tell us a little bit, more than a little bit, because he's very passionate about the subject of systematic diversity and inclusion. So he's going to be sharing with us thoughts that we all need to know. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead. I call him Dr. Joseph. So I'm going to go ahead and let Dr. Joseph tell you all about SDIG Group and tell you about the importance and the impact that it has had on not just African American communities here in the United States, but all across the world. We're all going through the same. It might be different, similarity wise, it might be different, but we're all going through something. We're all being challenged with this systematic diversity and inclusion piece. And so without further ado, I am going to go ahead and introduce Dr. Joseph and let him go ahead and tell us what we need, what we all need to know.
Okay. Hi, Benedict, can you stop that? Sorry about that. Okay. Good evening. It's really nice to know that you are having this discussion, Sandra. It's a worthy discussion, especially this month, African American month, a month that people gave for people to be able to at least discuss the issues of our time. I wouldn't even say issues of our time because this is history that has been over 400 years and it goes unabated. So from my perspective, I had
Dr. Joseph, hold on for one moment. I just want to actually ask people something. For those of you who are listening, if you can hear Dr. Joseph, can you please go ahead and give us some type of reaction just so that I can know that he is in fact being heard?
Sorry.
That's okay. Hold on, Dr. Joseph. For some reason.
All right.
For those of you that are listening tonight, if you can please let us know the reaction. If you can please let us know that you are here and that you are hearing us, I would appreciate it. If I can get a reaction of some kind, I would certainly appreciate seeing a reaction. Bear with me, Dr. I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay. No problem.
Let's try this again. Plantain and Jay, thank you so much for coming. If you can hear us, can you please go ahead and give us a heart or emotion? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Dr. Joseph, you can go ahead and speak.
Okay. Well, as I was indicating, this is an extraordinary occasion for people to reflect on history, for people to look back and see what we have done right, what we've done wrong, and perhaps more importantly, done wrong. Unfortunately, the wrongness continues unabated. If you look at what is happening in Florida, where they are stopping people from reading basic history, these are things that people still deny. Now, What do we do? That's the premise from which we operate at SDIG. We do believe that each and somewhere we have environments where our houses, our locations, our parents, our siblings, our relatives, our community are housed. In this type of place, there are some places where literally there are the vacations where you live. They make policies that prevent you from success, which reflects historical activities and is still ongoing, whether in small ways or in big ways, they are still ongoing. So at SDIG, we believe that we are all children of God, gifted in similar ways. They know more than the other in particular area, and the person we see that does in that particular area may be low there, but in other arenas, they are far better than the people who know the best. That's why we have people with skills. People that people where they are born ideally by their parents, they live with their parents teach them everything. And you are like me, I'll tell you this. You respect your parents, you believe that nothing will turn out. In my case, I believe all my friends that my parents were God-fearing people, individuals, people who believe in equity and social justice for all. Now, on the contrary, if you have somebody whose parents have taught differently, say like people who are racist in their behavior, guess what? You're gonna teach that person, the person gonna learn everything from them, and they're gonna behave exactly that. In psychology, there's something they call schema. In the theory of schemata, we are putting our experiences just like in offices, you have file system where you file all the information. You have human resource, you have account receivable, you have orders, etc., etc. That's how we file our experiences. Any person that tell you otherwise is lying to you. The only way you can change is through a paradigm shift. You're gonna give you completely. Let me give you an instance. If you are growing up and you're told about how bad, how terrible Black people are, guess what? You're gonna grow up believing it. You can lie about it. You can cover it for people to see what you are doing. But the fact is, when you have to make decisions, especially when you see those people you had been taught to hate, you're gonna draw from there. There's no question about it. The only way it can change is through what I call paradigm shift. And for paradigm shift to occur, you're gonna go what I call belief transformation. To transform that belief you had learned from your parents or your. And when you get to that, what you need is new information that will vividly tell you or show you that what you had been taught isn't correct. And then you see it with your naked eyes. Say, for instance, as I was alluding to, if you have a parent and they taught you how to hate people, whether they are Black people or whether they are people who are in different race, sexual orientation, guess what? You're gonna grow to behave the way your parents had expected you. Unless you don't respect your parents, you fight with them, then you may change them. But if you don't change them, you need new information. And that new information, you can get it by reading, you can get it by mingling with people who are different, people who are exactly the people they told you not to mingle with, to hate. And when you do that, there's something that will happen, like drama. Former Stanford professor Leon Festinger, who uncovered or the titled cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when you look at something is no longer like what you had been taught. And then it becomes like destabilization of your trend of thought. Then you look at it and see it, you change. People had said, if you remember, that black people can't swim. They can't play. Remember Jack Robinson? Remember those pioneers? They couldn't do, but as soon as they were given opportunity, they performed. So if you tell people that the black people don't do X, Y, and Z, and they see black people performing extraordinarily in the area, put them and say they cannot do. That's where cognitive dissonance takes place. It destabilizes the previous thought, the previous belief, and then you see with your naked eyes that Tiger Woods can do this. You see the young lady that wants so much in swimming, black people that can't swim, they can do this. It's not only for black people. Women, if you remember, women were not given opportunity to do things because they say women are not competent for that. Guess what? Today, women are doctors, women are engineers, women are playing on the frontier. They are actually outperforming men. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we do is to change. So when we talk about diversity, we don't just talk about it. We demonstrate activities that will clearly show people what it means. When you look at corporate executives who run around and go and hire people, they try to say, oh, we hire black people. They hire somebody and dub the person vice president of diversity and take the person and put in an obscure person doesn't do anything but draws his or her check. Let's face it, the person does not confront them for the atrocities they do, the lives they condemn by not promoting them, not giving them opportunity, and the cycle continues, ladies and gentlemen. So our premise is to tell them vividly, if your corporate executive is not interested in tackling the problem, we don't want to even talk to you. The president has to become he's committed to it. In corporate organizations, they have what they call policies. If they state in their policies that, well, we are selling something and bet the sale is going down, what can we do? They'll tell you precisely how many percentage they've gone down. Then at that point, they begin to look and ask, what is the problem? And when they're able to answer the problem, the next thing is look at what are the sources of the problem. They figure it out. And when they figure them out, they begin to say, you know, what strategies can we use to overcome this problem, to resolve this problem, to root out this problem? That's when they come with all kinds of ideas and then begin to level. If there are people that are really doing the due diligence, they will state, this is the first solution, this is second solution, this is the third solution. Say, for instance, if they say, well, we don't have minority, we don't have black people, we don't have this, what do? They say, you know what? Let's do and get at least 2% of them. And let's display them across the board. Management, supervisor role, ground role, all aspects. Don't put them in a place where you see them every day. They are janitors that are put in places where they are not seen. And that implies the negativity, stereotype behavior they had developed. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's how we change. Now, in medical field, we talk about equity and social justice. Something that stuns me is this. If you're a medical doctor, you of course supposed to have proven with this kind of specialties that should not be compared to any. And then you tell me that those people, they don't understand sociology, they don't understand psychology, they don't understand cultural issues, they don't know anything. Well, based on what I'm reading, based on the research I'm looking at, I'm not a medical person, but basic knowledge will tell you when you are doing something that hurts somebody, like every other thing. Women are dying for giving birth to babies. Look at the statistics. I didn't look at it, but it's just overwhelming and disturbing. And every year they talk about it. Data shows it. But guess what? Nobody's doing anything really tangible. Otherwise, doctors should be, I mean, they should take certificates of doctors. They should ban people from doing certain things, just like they ban lawyers who do wrong things. And guess what? That's what I mean by policies. They say you can't do this, you can't do this. You are caught doing it. You gotta be punished with the greatest. I mean it in literal sense. If we have leaders, they have to have policy. They have to look at problems. They have to define what it is. They have to define the source of the problem. Then they gotta come with strategies to deal with the problem and root it out. And then when they get people who violate that policy, they will deal with them with the greatest severity. And when they see people who are advancing those policies, they reward them. And guess what? They will succeed. So I would say that anything we are seeing mistreatment of people, whether it's the gay people, whether it's the African American, whether it's people who are disabled, whether it's people go to school in first grade, some teachers will determine who is going to fail, who is going to succeed. And there's something they say is self-fulfilling prophecy. Guess what? By the end, the people the teacher looked down and say they're going to fail, they will fail. The people they looked up, they say they're going to succeed, they will succeed. There's one workshop we did that is catching fire. It shows how nurturing goes. Utilizing Erickson theory of development, a child that is nurtured by mom, fed by with her breast, touched, made to feel happy, will develop other positives. And those positives will catapult the person to embracing positives, empowering him or herself, and doing wonderful things. On the other hand, a person who has been intimidated, if the person says the person poops, they will whack him and beat the hell out of him, frighten him. And guess what? You stole the person's confidence. And the person begins to have a fear of immediate battering almost at every point in time. So, ladies and gentlemen, what people want is what people get. The pain and suffering of people from generation to generation continues. I don't know how many of you know Michelle Alexandra, who wrote about what had happened to those who, generations after generations, the police continue to push people, put them in jail, suffer them, punish them. By the time somebody grows, you can't have a parents or relatives that can take care of them because other people have been intimidated and made as if they cannot do anything. So that's the way things go. And that's really what we are doing at SDIG. We deal with school, we deal with corporations, we deal with communities. There are some people from Canada we are working with in the educational front, on business front. So, ladies and gentlemen, while we are not in the medical field, diversity is reality. And diversity is now a pocket issue. If you want to do well, you better open up. Because those people who've always put on on the side, they will not talk to you. And part of our work is to instill confidence in them so that they will be able to ensure that they don't allow this nonsense to continue. So that's what I have. And if you have any question, I'll be glad to answer it.
I didn't realize I was on mute. Um, as someone just mentioned to me. So I'll say that again. If you're listening on Facebook or you're on YouTube, you're on LinkedIn, I should say, and you're interested in hearing this topic, please go ahead and put it in the comments so that you can, in fact, be able to ask that question in reference to diversity. But to keep this conversation going, Dr. Joseph, I do have some questions. And one of those questions is this. I know that the SDIG group works on an international level with diversity. So is it the same in all countries, or does one country have a better diversification portfolio than another country? So how is that going across the war, going across from country to country, which, if it's not the same, which ones do you think, in your opinion, have the best policies when it comes down to diversification, and which ones do you think really need some work done?
Thank you so much for that question. And unfortunately, I will say that worldwide, no one meets my standard. Discrimination is ubiquitous in all continents, perhaps all countries. The reason why it's more pronounced in the United States is that that diverse group, each group is talking about what they've gone through. That in some places where you see majority may be white, and then the minority may be black, and the blacks may be in so small group that nobody even attempts to understand that the pain they go through. Now, even now, I can even say, look at what is happening in the Middle East, or rather, what is happening in Gaza. I think is atrocious. When I look at what is happening to kids, and the world kept silent, it's evil. To be very candid with you, how I feel. So similarly, these are things people go through on this our earth. Whether they are disabled people who don't get jobs, say for instance, if you look at neurodiverse individuals, there's a research that shows in Britain that about 78% or something like close to almost 80% can't get a job. If you come to the United States, it's 85%. Think about it. These are human beings who are like you and I. They have to live. That somebody's leg is broken doesn't mean he can walk. Okay? That somebody has one leg or one hand or not able to walk at all doesn't mean the person doesn't fit himself and live. That somebody is a woman and they subject the person to atrocious treatment, it's terrible. I had been given something by one of our associates um, from India, where a man was beating his wife. After beating his wife, his son, 3 years old, took the thing he used, the paddle, and went and started paddling the mother. Talk about murdering. Now, if you look at our global community, there are people in pain. There are people who are, and those are people who are usually don't have anybody to speak for them. So, in terms of I think the world is in shambles. There are so many elements of discriminatory practices around our globe. But these are the type of things that we need to do more to send the message out. People who have moral conscience of what is happening, who put themselves in the shoes of those who suffer. You go to corporations, they are making billions of dollars, while the people who are actually doing the work are paid peanuts. So I don't even know where to begin.
Thank you for that. And I was actually on mute. So I thank you for that. And you bring up some really important points as you and I, are still conversating. You bring up some really important points. A lot of people hear the word diversity and they think it's based on color. But diversity isn't, color is a part of that. And that's what is so harmful to the African Americans as well as to all cultures, is that when you look at diversity and you really don't know what you're looking at, you hear diversity and it's like it's automatically tied into um, it's automatically tied into color, so color of one's skin. When in reality, diversification, when you unravel the layers that are there, is so much more than just the color of one's skin. That's diversity. So, with that being the case, how did this subject, how did this topic all of a sudden mysteriously just wrap itself around the medical field, the health field, as well as the color of one's skin?
I think it's important because sometimes when I hear people talk about diversity, a lot of people don't have any concept of what it is. A lot of people just talk about the one that is pertinent to them. They don't look at the holistic aspect of what is happening. At SDIG, we term it as holistic diversity. If you come to our professionals, we have professionals who are part of our training team. We have people from places as far as Australia. We have people from England. We have some people from South Africa, Nigeria. We actually have somebody who had stayed in the same jail with Nelson Mandela. We have people from India, Asia. We have people from the United States, of course. And we have people from South America. We have people from Canada. And that's what gives us our footprint in almost all continents. Now, there was a company, or rather, the company is called We Connect the Dot. They are training minority students who often are flunked out of school, training them on tech, wiring skills, like the one my friend who teaches could be a dream at Chicago, who had gone to Burundi and so many other countries, training people. And those people are now empowered to work in the United States, through online, Canada, Europe, while some people who are trying to cross have been killed in the sea because it's easier to kill them there. Now, if we truly have conscience, we will know that it's human suffering. We will help in wherever way we can. But diversity, a lot of people are really naive. It could be diversity in context of thought, ideas. Now, companies that reflect diversity are able to tap into the synergy associated with diversity, different knowledge base, different ideas. Now, if you have a company, for instance, if you are in sales, you hire people from um, Hispanic countries, hire people from African countries with various languages, hire people who speak English. Guess what? You find out that when somebody is trying to sell and they have a problem with the person because the language is not as connected with the person, what the person wants, you transfer it if the salespeople are trained well. You transfer it to somebody who may be of the same culture. There are some elements of, we that could infuse into the situation, and at the end, you find out that your sales will go up.
If you just hire some white people, I know some people who will say they will not shop in that kind of place. They are taking active action to stop it. And you can see some white people who, when they go to a store that is only manned by white people, they say, no, these are white people with conscience. They want change. You see some Jewish people now who, when they look at what is happening to people in Gaza, they say, no, this is wrong. But some people will just cover up and put their heads in the sand, and the evil continues in our faces.
That's just really interesting. The fact that we don't know, right? And so no one is coming to tell us, hey, look, this isn't one sided. This diversification has so many sides to it. And before I go on, I do want to say thank you, Platine. I do see that you've been here listening with us since we've been on, so I'm very appreciative of you. Uh, but this is a thing, we people don't know, and then what could we do? What could be done to make sure, especially during this month of Black History Month, and I've said this since we've started doing the Black History event on February 1st, that while we address, because this is our month, right? Everybody has a month. This is our month. So we're addressing issues that impact us in such a negative way. Diversification is one of those ways, and it hurts us because those that have the power to do and to be more are once again making this like a one-sided affair. Like they're just really like focusing in on one side instead of focusing it in on everything, and just how much we need diversification. And I'll take, for instance, here in the States with education, right? Diversification. And when you go to university, they want to close down all these programs, these diversification programs. But what they're not understanding is that when you close it down, you're not just hurting one person or one culture. You're hurting us all because we don't get a chance to learn from each other if there's no programs available for us to learn from each other. And it's just it's and so what you bringing up tonight, what once again, while this is addressing the African Americans who are listening or who maybe watching at a later point, we all need to keep our eyes, regardless as to what color of skin you are or where your socioeconomic status in life is. We all need to like take a seat, and you let me know if I'm wrong, Dr. Joseph, but we all need to like take a seat and really sit and actually dissect that word, diversification, so that we will all be able to get a little clearer idea on exactly what happens when diversification programs don't exist, when the government shuts down diversity, programs in school or in grade school or whatever educational level you're at. Doesn't that actually hurt us more so than I mean, it's harmful to me, and it's hurtful for me to hear you explain it in such an in-depth way, in a detailed way, because it hasn't been discussed before. But I just really wanted to know, what is your take on that, on them closing these diversification programs within the school systems?
Well, I guess you should know my view about it. I think the problem we have stems from the divisions. We have demarcations. We have, if you go to small community, you have a place where you see mostly the poor people. You see the other place, you see people who are black, poor people. Somehow they incentivize people to believe that if you are poor black, um, you are not as bad, you are bad. But if you are white poor, you are a little bit ahead of the poor black. And then the people who are doing well, they are at the top level, so they can be enjoying life the way it should be. And the poor white will look at poor black and say, "Yeah, I'm better than that person." And the people are wired to be always comparing, to be always looking at the one that impacts them. Because of that, we have these divisions in communities, and they train their people to hate. And then when you come to an environment, it doesn't reflect what everybody knows that is good. There's a book by one lady, I've forgotten about her name, but the title of the book is Why Black People Are Sitting Alone in the Cafeteria. Well, the black people are sitting in the cafeteria alone, in part, among other factors that could be considered, because they are sitting with people they trust, the people that were brought up in the community, the people who are aware of their sufferings, though they go to them and stay. I was involved in international exchange. When you go to other places where you may see white people, you find out that white people stay on a particular place by themselves, talking to one another, no connection with other people. So it's a reflection of communities, how the communities had programmed them. So when they go into the higher, bigger society, it's not going to change. As I said, um, formation of belief, when you form it, you don't change. It's difficult to change. You support people who are supporting your views. Now, if you are truly educated, that you have your education has accentuated to the level of meaningful diversity, that's the best life because your conscience will be clear. The way you deal with a fellow human being will be good. And then you look around, you can understand human pain and sufferings as well as joy. So when you see some people enjoying life and other people are not enjoying life, you will be immediately be drawn to learn why. The education system is structured in such a way that certain people get all they need, certain people are really not giving enough. And then you go within that area, you see that their teachers are usually not well prepared and these kids are not going to be doing well. Now, some of them are giving inflated grades. When they go to school, where teaching and learning is really something you're going to do some work. All those people who may have paid all this money to get through the school that never prepared them on basic, things they need in order to succeed. At the end, they flog them out. All the money they took from loan that will go to them, and then they go out and suffer for the rest of their lives. And those who are nurtured and trained well will go and do well. Besides, they have what they call cultural capital. They may have parents, friends that will get big jobs on the telephone, and those people who are disadvantaged don't have that network. So there's so much that sometimes it boggles my mind. And sometimes I just shake my head. Why would this be happening? But that's the world we live in. You see the third world, some people say third world, and as if certain people are more important than the others. We are all human beings created to with everything we need. Think of the money that's squandering in wars. Think about it. That money could be used to make this world a better place for every human living and even future generations. Is it happening? No. A lot of people put their heads in the sand. They can't speak up. They can't stand for fairness. They can't stand for truth. So we have created terrible situation, and that's what we are all reaping.
Yeah, but at some point in time, is I mean, do you ever see it getting better? And how can what as far as sustainability? Because I'm all about sustainability. Which is one reason why I started the Chimes Health Foundation, because I see policies and then they don't work, and they don't work because we sit around talking about them instead of actually taking action on them very policies to truly make them work. And so at a certain time and place in time, the light goes off of those policies. Everybody seems to forget about them until it's convenient enough to bring it back up again. But why should we have to do that? Why should we bring about policy that's been hidden, so hidden up underneath so many layers? Why should we have to, instead of coming up with a better policy or coming up with a policy that's sustainable, why should we continue to do these policies that only work sometimes or only work for some people or anything like that? So do you have a notion or and thank you, Richard, for joining us. Do you have sorry, do you have any thoughts on how we can literally make it better, like make a more sustainable plan towards diversity?
You know, the solution to these things are clear. The problem is we don't have leaders. That's why at SDIG, most of our clients, the first question we ask them is the president aboard? Is the CEO aboard? Does it or does the person know what it is? A lot of people talk about diversity, they don't have a clue of what it is because they were not groomed in that environment. So they got whatever misconceptions they have and they label it diversity, and that's what they do. If you have somebody who truly understands what it means and ask the proper question, does the president want to do what needs to be done? If the answer is yes, we partner with them. The first thing is to do assessment to know where they are in the trajectory of meaningful diversity. What are they doing? What are they not doing? How could we correct them and let them buy into the things they need to do to rectify the situation? Now, at the end, we know where the problem is, and that's where we begin to set goals. They say within a year, if they don't have, or they have 1% or 2%, some people will lie to pretend that they have the 2% of minority. In some cases, they don't have anything. You get the nail there, then we know what they have. Then we say, in a year, how do we improve it? Then they agree on what they will do. Then they call other, senior leaders. These are our goals. These are your responsibilities. And if you shoulder your responsibilities and every other leader shoulders his or her responsibilities, at the end, we meet that mark. Then that's coming from leadership. And then it will come from some individuals who are leaders. They are told 2%, they can make it 10%. There are people who are high achievers, they achieve more than is expected. Then individuals have responsibility. They should have a means to reporting those people who do terrible things and think that nobody catches them. Just like sexual harassers. If you have a mechanism where they are reported, you have instill fear into them that they will not do it. So if you look into diversity and say, this is what we're going to do, you report people who are not doing what needs to be done. They violate policy. You punish them severely for that. You see people who are doing what you expect them to do, that increasing the number more than the number assigned to them. You reward them handsomely. Other people will emulate those footsteps. But if you don't have leadership, guess what? Nothing will happen. And increasingly, based on the things I've written or talked about, you find out that what they do now is to go and hire a black person or Hispanic person or a woman and call the person vice president of diversity. What does that do? That does not do anything. What they do is that they pay check to the person every year. That's good. But what about who speaks for them? They don't speak for them. And then some people say, oh, human resource. Human resource is part of the management. I'm of the view that that human diversity doesn't have to work with human resource. Diversity should be independent body, objective analyzing the human resource. But if you put it under the leadership of human resources, guess what? They will do exactly what the human resource want them. And that's something that you can explain by showing how administrative part of it and human resource are in bed. They cannot conflict contradict anyone. they can be losing somersaulting in the wrongs and why the sufferings are continuing to suffer. So, as an individual, you can still do something regardless of your level. That's what I tell people. You can do something. You can write something if you can write. You can talk to somebody if you have somebody who can confide in. You can form organization within that group. You see, like people who are talking about increase their wages, they are getting it. See people who are looking for joining union. They are getting for better, they are doing it. So for diversity, they should have such organizations working in all fronts. That's the only way they can make a positive change towards diversity. If you let these nincompoop that have been trained to be really discriminating in their policies, in their actions, and so on and so forth, nothing will change. And that's why after 401 years to be that, discriminatory practices against African Americans continues from slavery to present covered and overt discriminatory practices that is overwhelming in every corner of operation.
I'm still not hearing you, so I'm not sure if you're on mute. If you want to take your seat, if you're on mute, there you go. You should be able to talk now. Something is still going.
Oh, I think I can hear him.
You can hear him? Okay.
Yes. Could you go on with the question, please? Thank you very much. And thank you too for coming.
And Dr. Joseph, if you can go ahead and say what the question was, because I was not
Well,
able to hear it.
actually, there was no question. He just wanted to thank us for doing what we are doing.
Okay. And thank you, Kaganda, for coming in as what. Thank you, Kaganda, for coming in as well. If you'd like to raise your hand, please do so. If you have any questions that you want to ask, thank you so much for coming. Dr. Joseph, as we get ready to close out in a few moments, what I do want to actually ask you in reference to the diversity issue is, you brought up why it would be, what's sustainable, what does sustainable diversity look like? One of the things that I heard you mention in that diversification issue is this: you would definitely need to you would definitely need to what can I say? You would definitely need to know what diversification is, right? You can't get away from diversification if you have no idea what diversification is. So you definitely need to know what diversity is, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then my other issue is this: diversification, learning about diversification is a learned behavior. So how do how does one learn about diversification if nobody's doing it, because nobody truly understands what the definition of learned behavior is? How does that happen?
I have to say this, and when I say it, please, nobody should be offended. In my culture, they say he who is wanting to poop should be running to the bathroom to poop. So the person who is suffering will be the one who is mostly affected. And people who do not feel it are mostly playing around. They don't take it seriously. So that's why the people in power often they don't have any pain. It doesn't perturb them. So they think that life is just the way they see it. In order to understand diversity, you have to understand the complexities of it. There are so many variations of it. And even at that, you're still be limited. Now, let me just say this. You know, there's something we call like high cultural context people and cultural context people. Low cultural context people are people like sometimes they call the Western world. They see like you have to when you do anything, you have to get lawyer, you have to write on paper, you have to do this, and then when you use it, they say, "Hey, you said this, you wrote this." Now, somebody from low context culture will be the one that everything is gonna say do this, you do this. They have manipulative ways to defraud people even. Now, somebody from high context culture are the people who will not get into those things. And when you tell them to, you're gonna sign paper, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, the person will think that you don't trust them. And then from there, they begin to distrust you. And that you can see different in cultures. So diversity is being able to understand both cultures, to be able to bring both people from high culture and low culture, to understand how the other person perceives trust and what it means, and why the other person does what he does by getting lawyers, signing this and signing that. And when you educate people, they do well. Corporations that are penetrating other countries. Now you've seen report that some African countries are the highest growing countries right now. Well, a lot of countries from Western world are jumping in there. China is jumping in there. Europe is jumping in there. States are jumping in there to do things. And some of them are becoming smart. They don't want exploitation anymore. So what is happening? They train their people so that they understand the culture of those who do those things that way. And when they understand it, those people will trust them. So when you look at diversity, it's so complicated. You see gender issue, you see intellectual abilities. We are all gifted in many ways. The only way to infuse the level of knowledge we have is to get people who are knowledgeable, say in linguistics, get people who are knowledgeable in medicine, bring them together. The nurses can be able to have someone who speaks Spanish to interpret things for them so that they can get a good sense of how their patients feel. Otherwise, they just go and write up whatever they may write. It may not solve the problem. So it could be in terms of how people do things. The way people do things may be different, and no way of doing things is really bad. The problem is that we don't understand how people do things and why they do it. Diversity will help you to learn not only about yourself, but about other people. So again, there's a lot of work to do. Unfortunately, little is known about the complex nature of diversity and the implication for dealing with human beings from all areas of life.
With that being said, what happens or how do we address that? How do we get to a point that it's 2024? We are still living in a very biased world, which causes that diversification to be such at a standstill. like we're wrapping and we keep wrapping ourselves around this word diversification, but what action do we have to take? Must we take? Are we required to take in order to actually reach a good state of diversification? So that not only does it help the African American community, but also so that it helps all communities in all cultures. There's got to be there's got to be a starting point where not only will the well-to-do and the well-educated and the well-trained understand what the definition of diversity is really about, um, but be able to break it down and talk and say how can we fix this and really fix this. Is there one thing that stands out for you? I mean, there's a couple that stand out for me, but I'm not the diversification senior subject matter expert. I see diversity as far as healthcare is concerned, as far as medicine is concerned, but outside of that realm, as far as all the other parts of diversification and all the other fields that diversification um, is into, I'm not the one that's well versed on that. But I want to learn. So for those of us that want to learn, where do we go? I mean, I could say go on Google, but a lot of times Google gives us the wrong information, and Google gets us more confused than if we were to talk to someone that was well versed in that area. But how do we find those people if nobody, especially in our community, is really talking? What do we do?
Okay, I think you asked me so many questions in this, but let me start by saying, on the basic level, each and every one of you can begin by doing something. Reach out to people who are different from you, get to know them, develop good relationship, and through that process, expand that circle. And by so doing, you begin to see that the people you influence by just saying hello. When you are walking on the road, say hi. That kind of beginning would multiply. They say positive begots positive. Now, to define diversity, some people often use diversity and inclusion interchangeably. And I have my way of defining them, but there's one definition I found from Europe that I really like. They say that diversity is like when you invite people for party, and when they come to your house, and if you're invite as many people as black, white, red, yellow, whatever, to the party. Then when you invite them, you look around, you see that they have different shades of skin or pigmentation skin. Then you look at them, you see them. Then you begin to dance. The music is going, everybody is laughing and dancing and so on. Then look around. You see some people who are sitting alone, perhaps because they are stranger in that environment. Nobody knows them, and they feel like intimidated. They can't go to people they don't know and say, "Hey, can we dance?" But in that context, everybody wants to dance. So diversity is when you come and see different skin pigmentations. But true inclusion is when everybody is happy, believing that they are within the groove and happy and doing what everybody is doing. And that I try to always use that as a way to distinguish. Now, I'm going to go back to what I started with, belief formation. We've always been formed by virtue of our divisions. I call it artificial walls that divide people in communities, in settings, black and white, all kinds of things, rich and poor, etc., educated and uneducated. And you see that they treat one another differently, vastly differently. Now, if you get to see all those things, those are all dynamics going on. You can do something as an individual to show by example, and people will see your example and they will emulate it, and that could, like snowball, it could begin to impact other people. I call it disease, beautiful disease that we will all need to be advocating for everybody to catch that disease. Because if you go to a place and you don't talk to people, they already been taught of you, maybe based on your state, maybe based on your education, maybe based on the fact that they look at some people, they say that person is no good. I had a teacher who taught me when I was doing my doctoral work. He used us to do a test. He took us to a place where they were selling brand new cars. And when we are going, he wore ragged jeans and torn polo shirt. And our students usually dressed up. So as we got to the company where they're selling cars, he was the first that went in. The salespeople left him and ran to us and was going to people who are dressed well, thinking that we have money. Poor students. At the end, that guy bought two vehicles. I can't remember the name, but one was one of the, one of the best cars that the price is unbelievable. He bought those cars. Guess what he did? He went to the manager of that company and said that he wants him to fire all those people. So there are covert discriminatory practices, there are overt discriminatory practices. And sometimes people are running around thinking that they are doing something good. They didn't know that the trap was set to uncover their real personalities. So that's what I can say. So we have to do something in group, as individuals, in our companies, in every circle we find ourselves. We all have responsibilities. Leaders have especially more responsibilities because if they articulate what they want in an organization, that everybody should be treated based on fairness, you see everybody emulating it, especially if they reward those who do it and punish those who don't. That's as simple as I will put it.
Well, Dr. Joseph, I thank you so much for taking an hour out of your busy, busy day to go ahead and share with us what we needed to know, what we need to know, how we need to move ahead when it comes to systemic diversity and inclusion, how we need to really understand exactly what systemic diversity and inclusion is, how it's played out in organizations, whether it's in the medical field, the health field, the legal field, whatever part of corporate America, even not even corporations, even going into stores and, how things are ran and how we as African Americans are treated when we shopping or when we're looking for stuff. We need to realize that all of that is a part of the policy that's tied directly to systemic diversity. We need to learn, who do we talk to? We go to talk to somebody says, hey, go talk to the diversity, and inclusion office. We go in that diversity and inclusion office as long as we have them because they're talking about taking that all away. But we go into that office, we should be asking that person that they sent us to see, can you tell me what qualifies you for this job? Because if their qualifications don't add up to what you needed to add up to, then you need to find somebody else that's going to listen to what's going on with you in that particular corporation, because them sending you to somebody and them saying that that's the diversity officer, if the diversity officer isn't trained correctly on diversity, the chances of them actually seeing or feeling what you feel or what you see are very slim to next to nothing. And so that's why a lot of times these policies hurt our community, especially our community the most, is because no one's really paying, to me, and this is just my opinion, no one's really paying attention to who they're actually putting in these offices. They're just giving them a title and, because they don't know and they don't even really know how to go find out what exactly is true diversity. How should true diversity be handled? So I thank you, the Chimes MEDI-HELPZ Foundation. Thanks you for taking an hour out of your busy time tonight and discussing with us systemic diversity and inclusion. And yes, all of us, as we stated early on, and even when you and I talk, all of us, every last person is human, and every last person deserves the right to be treated the same as someone else. Now, whether you take that and you say, well, that's what I want, or you're okay with not, being treated less than someone else, the real issue is at least you know now that you should be, and everybody should be treated the same way. So you have an option. You either continue to allow people or continue to allow those policies that are built around certain corporations. You continue to spend your money with them and vote for them and do all of this stuff for them. You continue to use what you have, the power that you have, to accept second best or third best, fourth best, anything but first best. Or you use your power and you use it in a way in which you can positively make a change. It's, your life. This is what you want, not what someone else wants, or not what someone else is forcing on you. So with that being said, Dr. Joseph, continue to have a beautiful, beautiful evening, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Thank you so much for having me, and continue with the good work. I'm completely in acquiescence with all the things you said.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Thank you.